Shao Kahn created us as well. You cannot kill what is already dead. Magic binds me still.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel and to another Mortal Kombat mobile character review. Today we are taking on the monster of all the reviews. We are talking about Kosplay Jaqui Briggs. That means 6 characters in one, 6 different special attacks, 6 different passives if you will. So we have a lot to talk about and go through, so let's get this party started. Kosplay Jaqui Briggs is part of the martial artist / spec ops class and her passive is called Collector. Once per match, Jaqui can change on tagging into different ninjas, each time giving her a unique combat effect and very high bonuses against a character type. Well, as already stated, Jaqui Briggs in her cosplay variation is a true chameleon, and right at the beginning we should go through the 6 different types that she has at her disposal, so you already know what is up to each variation. To simplify things, you could say that the variations Rain and Sub-Zero are against Outworld, Scorpion is against Spec Ops, Reptile is against Martial Artists, and Tremor and Ermac are against Netherrealm. To go a little more into detail, we look at Rain first. So Rain has the Dispel on Special 1 and is good against Outworld opponents because Jaqui will deal plus 50% basic attack damage against Outworld characters. If you choose the Scorpion variation, she gains Burning on Special 2 and some certain combo enders, and she works well against Spec Ops. Once Spec Ops characters are set on fire, they will lose way more power due to the burning effect than usual. If Jaqui goes with the Sub-Zero variation, she will gain Frostbite on combo enders and her Special 1, and she's also great against Outworld characters because in this case she gains plus 50% critical damage against Outworld opponents. If you decide to take her out as Tremor, then she will gain a stun effect on Special 2 and she will have a 30% chance for lethal blow attacks against Netherrealm characters. When she plays as Reptile, she is great against martial artist opponents. She can blind her opponents by using her Special 2, and when she's fighting against martial artists there will be a constant poison DOT draining them pretty much like the passive of classic Ermac, who has the Soul Siphon passive that constantly drains some health from the opponents. It's basically the same here with martial artists. Also in her Reptile variation she has a poison DOT on a combo ender. And finally we have the Ermac variation where she causes vampirism on tag-in and Special 2s, and she works extremely well against Netherrealm opponents because she can reflect damage from blocked special attacks. And it always will depend what kind of characters you are facing in the current match, and then you can select the variation for each single match, but not in between matches. Kosplay Jaqui Briggs was introduced with update 1.16 alongside with Classic Melina and Injustice 2 Raiden. She was a challenge character right from the beginning, and she was max fused with Fusion 7 and level 50. Back then, once you completed the challenge for Kosplay Jaqui Briggs, she was available in the store for 482 souls. Of course, she was also added to the challenge pack and several other packs. Here I only have a picture of the Elder Challenge booster, but I'm also pretty certain that she will also have a challenge event starter pack. NetherRealm are constantly changing packs and we have quite a few hundred now of those, so we can never really tell which packs are still up to date and which are simply completely removed from the game. Anyway, her level cap was then raised to Fusion 10 and level 60, and of course she is now also available in the new store for 450 souls, which makes it even cheaper than before. The downside is you can only buy one copy at a time and not buy her whenever you feel like. In terms of her feats of strength, she will have to win 500 matches in battle mode to unlock her rune. For her victory stances, she has to win 750 matches in faction wars. For her taunts, she has to knock out 1000 enemies. For her icons, she has to perform 250 X-ray/fatal blow attacks. For her backgrounds, she has to win 200 matches in challenge mode. And for her titles, she has to perform 3000 combo enders. And now we are going to take a look at her victory stances one by one, starting with Double Down. Next up we have No Chance. Third will be Getting Ready. And exclusive to Kosplay Jaqui only, Reinforced Punches. And on your victory screen it will look like this. Jacqui's gear piece is the Power Glove and it gives you 35% max health boost, 35% basic attack damage boost for Jaqui Briggs characters only, and 25% chance to reflect 100% basic attack damage when blocking. Now I am going to show you all of her backgrounds. Next we have the icons. And finally the titles. Jaqui Briggs has two kinds of tag-in attacks. The first one works with all variations except the Ermac variation. She will just jump in and push the opponent back a little bit and deal a little bit of damage. Nothing really special and the damage output is not very high. Once in her Ermac variation, she will just fly into the battlefield and rip the opponent apart, and she can even kill on this attack. In her Rain variation, she has two kinds of combo enders. The first one a kick, and the second one looks like kind of an upward punch, but it looks more like she's just throwing some water into the face of her opponent. Once in Scorpion variation, she also has two kinds of combo enders. The first one uses the kunai chain from Scorpion, and also there is this effect that you can cause fire just by using a combo ender. The second one just knocks the opponent down to the ground. In her Sub-Zero variation there are also two kinds of combo enders. The first one is the classic slide, and that one causes frostbite, and the second one also knocks the opponent down to the ground. Also for Tremor we have two different combo enders. The first one is another kick, and the second one is basically throwing a rock into the opponent's face, just as Tremor would do. In her reptile variation we also have two combo enders, and the first one throws kind of a poisoned tennis ball or something towards the opponent, while the second one just knocks the opponent down to the ground. And in the Ermac variation we also have two kinds of combo enders. The first one another kick that knocks the opponent down to the ground, and the second one is just blasting the opponent but leaving him on his feet. Her special one attack is called Ninja Style, and in the Rain variation she does not only gain Dispel function, but also pushes the opponent into a bubble, and she can KO with this attack. Just be careful, when you're too far away you will whiff. The second one is from Scorpion, and that's just a punch, and that is also capable of KOing your opponent. In her Sub-Zero variation she will throw some snowballs, which can also knock out your opponent, and of course it causes frostbite. And it's one of those that at least can work on a little bit of range. In her Tremor variation the special one is identical with her Scorpion variation special one, also capable of KOing the opponent. With Reptile we see just the same thing. Those are the same punches, same effects, nothing new here. And with Ermac we also have the same punches. By the way, with these punches be careful that you're not executing them way too far from the opponent, or the entire attack will whiff. Her special 2 attack is called Ninja Tactics, and she executes a few punches and a kick, and this attack is also capable of knocking out your opponent. In her Scorpion variation she will take out a little lighter and her hairspray, and she will set the opponent on fire. The funny thing is, this attack is not capable of KOing your opponent, at least not at the time. In her Sub-Zero variation you will have the same punches and the kick as you had in the Rain variation. And also one very important thing to note here is, once this attack is blocked it will deal no damage at all. Things get way more interesting in her Tremor variation, where she has a stun effect on her special 2 attack. And this attack is easily capable of knocking out your opponent, and it deals a high amount of damage. The same goes for Reptile, but this one is a grapple that causes blind. The only downside here is that you really have to stand very close to the opponent, otherwise even the tag and attack will already cause this attack to whiff. Another very interesting one is the one in her Ermac variation, where she gains Vampirism, and when executing this attack you can regain some health. Needless to say that this attack can also KO your opponent. Jacqui's X-ray is called the chest cavity, and it's the exact same as all the other Jaqui variations already showcased it. With having Cripple as debuff, she has one of the most beneficial debuffs in the game, because Cripple disables the special attacks of your opponents for a few seconds. Unfortunately though, it doesn't work on X-rays, so even if the opponent is crippled, they will still be able to perform an X-ray against you. And now it's time to recommend some gear for Kosplay Jaqui Briggs again, and as usual I'm going with the bladed fan again, depending on the variation that you are playing, and in my case that's mainly the Sub-Zero variation. It's always great to get a block breaker and health back on special 1 on top. Since I'm not really a fan of her own gear piece, I would actually recommend to go for the T800 Endoskeleton, which also gives you some health, but also reduces power costs of special 2s by 50%. And that will be incredibly useful if you are playing variations like Ermac or Tremor. Another great gear piece that always works on her is the Wrath Hammer. Aside from directly having a bar of power to begin with, she will also have a 20% attack boost, and that goes for basic attacks as well as special attacks at the same time. To gain even more health and another 40% critical hit chance, you go with Shao Kahn's helmet, of course. Combined with the T800 endoskeleton, that's always directly a 60% health boost. And my favorite piece of gear is Moloch's Ball and Chain, especially when I'm playing her either in Ermac's or Tremor's variations. And some of these gear choices, especially Moloch's Ball and Chain and the Wrath Hammer, always kind of depend on what kind of characters you play with her. So as a basic first character, I would always recommend Balanced Kenshi because he gives 1 bar of starting power. The same goes, by the way, for Hellspawn Scorpion. And because Kosplay Jaqui Briggs is a dual class character, combining the benefits of Spec Ops and Martial Artist classes, so you just add these 2 characters plus the Wrath Hammer and you can start with an X-Ray right at match begin. Or you could decide to just go with one of these characters and add Covered Ops Cassie Cage to your team, because this way Spec Ops characters will have a natural block breaker, and that's what I meant when saying that it depends if I use the Wrath Hammer or Moloch's Ball and Chain, because once I put these 2 gear pieces on, I usually add Covered Ops Cassie Cage to my team to have the block break on top. Another wise choice could be Shaolin Fist Kung Lao, because he will just boost your power generation for martial artist characters, and again, since she is dual class and also martial artist, she will benefit from Kung Lao as well. But the absolute winner here can only be Shirai Ryu Takeda. Once he is in the team, Kungjin, Cassie Cage and Jaqui Briggs characters gain 30% extra damage, extra health and critical hit chance on top. Kosplay Jaqui Briggs is absolutely a fun character to play. The only downside is that some of her attacks are very easy to whiff, especially when they are blocked or too far away from the opponent, but she makes up for that with great basic attacks, some solid chaining, and several interesting debuffs that are always useful depending on what kind of opponents you are facing. The Frostbite debuff being hands down the most beneficial to players, so that's probably the main reason why most players constantly play her only in Sub-Zero variation. But even if you are just sticking to the variations that are supposed to play against certain classes, you will have a lot of fun and you can experiment around with her a lot, of course, especially when it comes to gear choices. And depending on, as I already said, the characters you use in the team, you can use basic damage boost equipment, you can use stuff that causes more critical hit chance, so the variations here are endless. And while she easily can borrow the passives of Covered Ops Cassie and Shirai Ryu Takeda, she is basically free to use every equipment that you desire. That together makes her a very flexible character, and every player can really choose what they really prefer instead of just following the basic set. Alright then, we have reached the pros and cons, and my very first pro is that she's a very versatile character. She leaves so much room for experiments, be it with other characters or other gear pieces, that it's simply fun exploring all her variations. Even though you might not even need them against a certain class, but just trying them out is absolutely incredible. My second pro is that she has very strong basic attacks, and if you give her the right gear pieces, then she doesn't even have to use special attacks at all, like with 50% damage boosting equipment, plus the Shao Kahn's helmet, you can easily hit down entire teams just with her basics. And on top, some of these basic attacks or combo enders should I better say, also add these debuffs like fire, frostbite or poison, depending on the variation you play with her. My third pro, and that's probably the most important, is this amazingly great Sub-Zero variation. Since the frostbite effect is almost useful to every class, to every character, the Sub-Zero variation is always my go-to, especially because you even can cause it on combo enders. But as with most characters, not everything is perfect, so now we get into the cons. And my very first con is that she whiffs too often. Especially when that happens with a special 2, this is really angering, because sometimes you don't really wear power reducing gear like the Soul Medallion or the T800 gear, and if you are wasting a complete special 2 for 0 attack at all, this is so bad. And I say that as a passionate Ermac player, and we all know that his special 1 attack, when blocked, also deals no damage at all. But in this case here with Jaqui Briggs, I feel the difference because I might spend 2 bars of powers because of it. My second con is that she changes a lot, almost with most updates that are dropped for MK Mobile, and by that I mean that it really can happen that a special attack suddenly does no longer KO an opponent while another one suddenly does, so there is never this guarantee that you can say like Scorpion Special 2 will never KO an opponent. Next update this could be completely different. There was a time where the special 1 of the Sub-Zero variation didn't KO the opponent. Now it easily does. I also remember a time where Ermac's Special 2 didn't knock out the opponent, you always had to go back for the final blow. So this variation of Jaqui Briggs, the cosplay variation, seems to be very vulnerable to updates of MK Mobile. I don't know what exactly happens there and what parameters are changed all the time. But the downside to that is that players never really have an idea what the original intention was. And my third con is that her victory stance was reduced to default. There was a time when you had a victory in her Sub-Zero variation or whatever variation you desired. Then at the final victory stance she was wearing the costume of the variation you chose for that match, and now she always comes in this dull grey outfit. And I am pretty sure that this was done intentionally to reduce the extreme amount of gigabytes that game already had, because there was a time when we had like 2.6 gigabyte for just MK Mobile alone. And to decrease that amount of gigabytes they naturally had to take out some files, for example like some certain sound files, some different graphic options, and unfortunately Cosplay Jaqui Briggs was obviously one of those characters who obviously fell victim to one of these changes. But now let's get into the final rating, and I would say I would give her an 8.0. Despite all the flaws, she's such a fun character to play, as I already said, and every time I play her I absolutely enjoy her, especially in the Sub-Zero variation. But yeah, that was Cosplay Jaqui Briggs in a nutshell for you guys, and I hope you enjoyed this little review about this monster character. There was so much stuff to cover, but we made it all the way through to the end, so thanks a lot for your patience for listening to all this stuff. And of course I will be back with the next video very soon. Stay safe and healthy. KC over and out for today.
Thank you for watching, Realm. If you enjoyed the slaughter and the bloodshed, you can support the channel by clicking on the like button. You can also click on one of the 2 videos presented by Baraka here. Also make sure that you are subscribed and click the bell notification icon to be notified upon new uploads. You all know the drill. Wound not kill, have a good one, and see you next time.